My daughter told me she was glad I wasn't her dad, right after I paid for her prom dress. Her words didn't sting at first, but the silence from her mom when I looked over said everything I needed to hear. So I took an action that shocked everyone. I will tell you how everything unfolded. First, let me quickly thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Benny Gray from New York. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's go deeper into the story. I met Emily when she was 5, wearing a tutu over jeans and sticky grape popsicle fingers that clung to her mother's hand like Velcro. Diane was radiant, frazzled, freshly divorced, and working part-time at the credit union. She looked tired in a way that suggested she hadn't slept through the night in years, emotionally more than physically. We met at a friend's barbecue, and within minutes, Emily had flopped into my lap like she'd known me forever. Diane apologized, embarrassed, but I didn't mind. I never had a daughter. In that moment, I felt a piece of me shift, that quiet kind of shift you only recognize in hindsight, the way a tide pulls at your feet before you realize it's moving you. The first few years with them were full of effort. Not struggle exactly, just effort. Emily was polite but reserved. She clung to routines and bedtime rituals that didn't include me, called me Mark instead of Dad, even after Diane and I married. I told myself it was fine. She was adjusting. I could be patient. Diane said she's sensitive. It's not personal. And I wanted to believe that. I became the guy who showed up at school plays with a camcorder. The one who patched up her scraped knees and paid for ballet lessons even when the plumbing needed fixing. When her biological dad stopped calling, first once a week, then once a month, then not at all, I stepped up harder. I didn't want her to feel that absence. But no matter how many lunches I packed or parent-teacher conferences I attended, I was always a notch below real. The photos on her dresser were of her mom and daddy, some blurred Polaroids from when she was 3. Her eyes lit up when she talked about him, even though she couldn't remember much more than the shape of his beard or that he smelled like leather and cigarettes. The man himself? Last seen 7 states away, chasing some other woman, sending one birthday card in 13 years. Still, he was mythologized. Revered. I was tolerated. I tried not to let it hurt. I really did. Diane would say, "You're overthinking it." Every time. When Emily walked past me to show her new dress to her mom instead. When she signed her school forms with just Diane's name. When she posted family photos online and cropped me out. Overthinking. I began to hate that word. As if love was some Rubik's Cube I was twisting the wrong way. As if being ignored in your own home was a failure of perception, not a reality. Still, I kept showing up. Because love isn't just the good parts. It's the picking up, the driving back and forth from rehearsals, the late-night math homework. I once stayed up until 3 a.m. helping her glue together a diorama of the solar system using ping-pong balls and glitter. She got a B+. Never said thank you. But I smiled anyway. Diane saw it. Saw everything, really, and said, "She's a teenager, Mark. She doesn't mean anything by it." I nodded. But I stopped looking for meaning in things. Emily was 16 the first time I heard her refer to me as just my mom's husband to one of her friends on the phone. She didn't know I was in the hallway. I stood there for a long time after, just holding a basket of laundry, the weight of it strange in my arms. Like I didn't know where I belonged. It wasn't anger I felt, not then. Just this hollowness. Like someone had been carefully pulling threads from the sweater of my identity and I'd only just noticed I was cold. But it was prom season that year, the big event. The one she'd been planning since January. The dress was a champagne-colored dream that cost more than my monthly car payment. She cried when we first saw it in the window of a boutique, and I filed that look away in my brain. Diane had told her it was too expensive, but I'd started putting money aside anyway quietly, without making a show of it. Sold my old drill press. Skipped my annual fishing trip. Let the insurance payment slide a couple weeks. I did it because I wanted her to feel special. To feel seen. Even if she didn't see me. That's the thing about being the stand-in. You do the work of love without ever getting the credit. You're not the biological father. Not the one whose eyes she inherited or whose last name she carried. You're the one in the background, fixing the faucet, warming up the car, driving 3 hours to pick her up from a party she wasn't supposed to be at. And no one's writing Hallmark cards for that guy. But I kept telling myself, and God, how often I told myself, that one day she'd understand. That someday she'd see the quiet sacrifices, the hours, the faith I had in her even when she rolled her eyes at me. I didn't know then that everything would unravel with a single laugh and a single sentence. I handed her the dress on prom day like it was a peace offering, though I wasn't sure what battle I was trying to win anymore. It was wrapped in a garment bag, the kind with a little see-through window, so she could catch a glimpse of the champagne silk before she even unzipped it. Her face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years, not just excitement, but genuine surprise. "Wait, you got it?" she asked, and I nodded, trying to act like it hadn't required pawning my fishing gear and choosing between the electric bill and groceries last week. "Yeah," I said, "you deserve it." She hugged me. Not long, not deep, but it was the kind of moment I filed away like a keepsake I knew might not come again soon. Diane smiled from the kitchen, didn't say much. Just, "Looks like your dress dream came true, Em." That afternoon, the house transformed into a salon. Hot irons clamped hair into spirals. Makeup palettes covered the dining table. Shoes were strewn across the floor like glittering landmines. I kept myself busy, filled the gas tank, cleaned the car, vacuumed the seats. At one point, I ran to get nail glue because one of the girls snapped a tip. I didn't mind. Being useful had always been my way of feeling included. Later, I heard them out back. Emily and 3 friends, laughing around the patio table, drinking those canned lemonades she liked. I wasn't eavesdropping. Not intentionally. I had just stepped outside to check the grill. Someone had mentioned hot dogs, and I figured I could throw a few on. But I paused when I heard my name. Or rather, the way I was mentioned. "Your dad really came through, huh?" one girl said, teasing but impressed. And Emily laughed. Loud. Careless. "He's not my real dad," she said, her voice laced with amusement, like it was a private joke they all shared. The girls laughed with her. That short, cruel laughter of teenage girls who think nothing is sacred because they haven't yet learned about the things that are. I didn't move. I stood there with a pack of hot dogs in one hand, lighter fluid in the other, staring out at my own backyard like it belonged to someone else. The air was warm, fragrant with blooming jasmine, and yet I felt cold, deeply, viscerally cold, like something in me had shut off. Diane had been sitting at the edge of the patio, scrolling on her phone. She heard it too. Her eyes flicked up, met mine for the briefest second. But she didn't say anything. She didn't correct Emily, didn't defend me, didn't even flinch. That silence, it was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. I walked back inside, set the hot dogs on the counter, and stared at the kitchen wall until the moment passed. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. But I felt something unhook inside me, like a tether that had been holding my heart in place had finally snapped. I'd taken too many hits over the years, ignored too many slights, dismissed too many red flags as just teenage stuff, or Diane being non-confrontational. But this time felt different. Final. You know, when you've spent years convincing yourself something will change, that love will eventually be enough, and then you finally see it plain in front of you, you can't unsee it. That laugh, that sentence, Diane's silence, they weren't accidents. They were truths spoken in the only language they knew how to use, disregard. Dinner came and went. I grilled the hot dogs anyway. Took pictures of the girls under the arbor with fairy lights. Laughed at jokes I didn't find funny. Offered to drive them to the banquet the next day, even though Emily didn't ask. I played my role to the letter, the dependable stand-in. But inside, I was already packing up pieces of myself. Already checking out of a play I'd been performing in for too long without applause. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed while Diane folded towels beside me. The TV was on muted. Some home renovation show. She didn't look at me when she spoke. She didn't mean anything by it, she said quietly. Just that. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just another lazy erasure of what I'd just swallowed. I turned to her. You heard it. She nodded. Mark, she's 18. You know how kids talk. No, I said, and my voice was steadier than I felt. I know how people talk when they say what they really believe. She didn't respond. just kept folding towels, as if they held the answer she couldn't give me. I watched her for a while, this woman I'd shared a life with for over a decade. The lines around her eyes were deeper now, her hair thinner. We weren't young anymore. We'd been through layoffs, a miscarriage, late-night scares when Emily didn't come home. I had thought those things bonded us, but maybe they had just worn us down in different ways. I went to sleep that night with the shape of Emily's laugh echoing in my head. Not bitter, just hollow. The kind of laugh that says, I don't owe you anything. And maybe she didn't. But I didn't owe her anything anymore, either. The morning after prom prep felt like waking up in a house I didn't recognize, even though the walls were the same and the coffee still brewed on the same timer. Diane moved around like nothing had happened, hair pulled into a tight bun, already sorting through receipts on the counter like our lives were just numbers in the right columns. Emily was upstairs, still asleep, probably dreaming of dances and compliments, unaware that anything had shifted beneath the surface of her carefully built world. Or maybe she knew. Maybe that made it easier. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone screen for 20 minutes before opening the bank app. The overdraft warning blinked at me like a neon accusation. Negative $86.43. The prom dress, the nails, the last-minute shoes she absolutely needed, it all added up. I knew it would. But I'd said yes anyway, thinking it would mean something. I never thought I was buying love, just trying to leave behind some memory that might prove I had been there, really been there, when she needed me. She didn't need me. Not really. But I didn't cancel the plans. I didn't give the cold shoulder. I just played along. Because I wasn't angry, not in the way people expect. It wasn't rage that burned through me that week. It was resolve. A slow, steady shift in posture. I offered to take photos before the prom banquet, to drive them in the nicer car, to drop off extra funds to the school for their parent-sponsored refreshments. Emily barely responded. She was too busy FaceTiming friends, checking her dress for imaginary wrinkles, shouting from room to room about false lashes and hairpins. Diane caught me studying her one night while we were brushing our teeth. She looked at me through the mirror. You're quiet, she said. I spit out the toothpaste. You ever think about how silence tells the whole story? She furrowed her brow. What's that supposed to mean? But I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have the words. Because I was saving them. Because some truths, if spoken too early, sound like complaints. If spoken at the right moment, they become declarations. I wanted mine to land exactly where it needed to. The day of prom arrived like theater curtains rising. The backyard was decked out. Paper lanterns, a photo booth backdrop Diane had helped hang. I kept the grill hot for sliders. Parents began trickling in around 4 p.m. with phone cameras ready and overeager voices calling out, "Oh, honey, you look just like a princess." Emily beamed under all the attention, surrounded by classmates in rented tuxes and dresses that shimmered like oil slicks under the fading sun. Her hair was curled into waves, makeup sharp and grown-up. She looked beautiful. She looked like everything I wanted her to feel about herself. But when she turned to hug Diane, then posed for photos with her friends, I noticed how she kept me at the edge of the frame. Always one step too far. A head turned just slightly away. It was subtle, a trained photographer might miss it, but I felt it with the precision of a man who had memorized rejection in all its forms. Still, I offered to take the group photos. Got them from their best angles, told jokes that made them laugh naturally. A few parents thanked me. One dad clapped me on the back and said, "Man, you're doing it right. That girl's lucky." I smiled and said, "Thanks," and kept the pain neatly folded under my ribs like a well-worn napkin. It wasn't about the pain anymore. It was about the plan. I told the school I wanted to give a short parent speech, nothing big, just a moment of gratitude for the kids, the teachers, the journey. They loved the idea. "We always forget to let parents speak," one of the organizers had said. "So glad you volunteered." Diane looked mildly surprised when I mentioned it, but again, said nothing. She'd stopped asking questions a long time ago. Maybe she thought I was trying to score some goodwill. Maybe she thought I needed it. When it was finally time, I stood near the mic, holding a note card I didn't intend to read from. The principal gave a quick intro. The applause was polite. I stepped up, looked out at the crowd of teenagers and parents, all glowing and brimming with anticipation, and felt the strangest thing. Peace. The kind you feel when you finally stop begging for something that was never coming. But I didn't speak yet. First, I looked at Emily. She was sitting in the third row, arms folded loosely, her date beside her. She looked amused. Like this was another one of Mark's sentimental moments she'd politely tolerate before moving on. Diane stood beside her, phone up, ready to film. The irony made me want to laugh. So I began. I didn't start with bitterness. That would have been too easy, too expected. The kind of thing that lets people dismiss you as emotional, unstable, too sensitive, the exact labels Diane had used to wave off my concerns for years. No, I started soft, measured, the way a father might begin a toast at a wedding or a college graduation. I looked out across the crowd. All those proud faces, camera phones tilted up like antennae, and smiled. I remember the first time I braided her hair. I began, voice steady. It was terrible, lumpy, uneven. She cried. I almost cried. But we figured it out. Like we figured out a lot of things together. I wasn't there when she was born, or when she took her first steps. I didn't teach her to ride a bike. But I was there when she flunked math in 6th grade, and I sat with her at the kitchen table every night until she passed. I was there when her first boyfriend broke her heart, and she cried on the staircase until midnight. I was there when she needed a ride, or a check, or a signature. A few chuckles. Some nods from parents. Emily blinked, unsure whether to smile. Diane's phone was still up, filming it. Maybe thinking this would be a sweet clip to post on Facebook later with a caption like, "So proud of our girl." I kept going, slowly building. I met her when she was 5. She was shy, sweet, glued to her mother's side like a shadow. Her real father, the one whose DNA she carries, wasn't around. And I never asked why. I just knew she needed someone. And I was proud, honored, even to be that someone. Not for praise, not for credit, just for love. There was a stillness settling over the room now. Not discomfort, not yet. Just the hush of people leaning in, unsure where the story was headed. I sold my tools when money got tight. Gave up trips. Put my savings into braces, school trips, ballet lessons, SAT tutors. I never asked for a thank you. Never expected a parade. I just wanted her to feel safe. Supported. Never less than anyone else. My voice didn't crack. It was strange how clear I felt in that moment. Like I was finally standing upright after years of bending. And tonight, I watched her walk out the door in the dress she dreamed of. The one I couldn't really afford. But I made it happen because I wanted her to have that moment. I paused, let the silence sit for a beat. And then I gave them the truth. But then I heard her say something. To her friends. Laughed, actually. When someone complimented the dress and said, "Your dad really came through." She said, "He's not my real dad." There it was. The shift. You could feel it ripple through the room, a breath caught in every throat. Emily stiffened in her chair. Diane lowered the phone, face suddenly unreadable. "And you know what?" I said, voice still calm. "She's right." I looked directly at Emily, and for once, I didn't see a child. I saw a person, flawed, growing, capable of cruelty just like the rest of us. I'm not her real dad. Not by blood. Not by title. Because being a dad isn't about DNA. But it is about respect. Now the hush turned heavy. No murmurs. No movement. Just the kind of silence that feels like a held breath. The kind that follows truth when it's been hiding too long. And I realized something tonight, something I should have realized a long time ago. Love isn't enough when it's not returned. Sacrifice doesn't mean anything if it's invisible. And showing up doesn't count if the person you're showing up for closes the door in your face. I didn't look at Diane. I didn't need to. Her silence had already said everything. So tonight, I want to thank the school, the teachers, the other parents. I want to thank all of you for making this night beautiful for our kids. And to Emily. I truly hope this night is everything you dreamed it would be. And that was it. I didn't drop the mic, didn't storm out. I just set the microphone gently on the podium, nodded once, and walked off stage. I didn't stop to see her reaction. I didn't wait for Diane to follow. I walked out into the spring night, cool air pressing against my skin like a baptism, and kept walking, past the parking lot, past the murmuring crowd I could hear building behind me. No one stopped me. They just watched. For the first time in years, I felt unburdened. Not vindicated. Not triumphant. Just done. I didn't go home that night. Didn't answer calls. I turned off my phone somewhere around the county line and just drove. No destination, no plan. Just the hum of the engine and the winding stretch of asphalt unspooling in front of me like a road I'd been waiting my whole life to take. I ended up 2 towns over, in a budget motel with flickering lights and plastic sheets, the kind of place no one asks questions when you pay in cash. I slept on top of the covers, fully dressed, my mind flatlined. Not racing, not panicked, just blank. Peaceful, in a strange way. Like my body had finally caught up with the truth I'd been carrying for years. The video went viral by morning. Someone had filmed the whole speech. Not Diane, of course. She'd stopped recording the moment things turned uncomfortable, probably thinking she could manage the narrative later. But someone else caught it, the entire thing, from the first word to the last step I took off that stage. It was posted to TikTok with the caption, POV, "This dad gave the most heartbreaking prom speech ever," and within hours, it was everywhere. Reddit, Twitter, local news. The comments flooded in like a dam had broken, people calling it powerful, brutal, the realest thing I've ever seen. And just like that, Emily became that girl. The one who laughed off the man who raised her. The one who dismissed love because it didn't come with the right chromosomes. The one whose stepdad dropped truth like a velvet hammer in front of everyone she knew. Memes started. Debates flared. Strangers took sides. Some people tried to defend her, say she was young, that teenagers say dumb things. But no one could get past Diane's silence. That was the part that stuck in everyone's teeth. Why didn't the mom say anything? They asked over and over. Why did she just sit there? Diane sent me 3 texts that day. Call me. We need to talk. You humiliated her. I didn't respond to any of them. Because what was left to say? That wasn't humiliation. That was honesty. Spoken plainly. No accusations. No shouting. Just facts delivered in a tone they couldn't twist into anger. If Emily felt shame, that wasn't mine to carry. By the 3rd day, Diane was on Facebook posting a long, meandering status filled with excuses. Context matters. It's been a tough year for all of us. People don't see the whole story. But the comments weren't kind. Even the ones trying to be neutral ended with some variation of, "Still, why didn't you say anything?" That question haunted her more than anything. Diane always prided herself on being the peacemaker, the mediator, the calm one. But in the end, that same passivity exposed her. People didn't admire her quiet anymore. They saw it as cowardice. Complicity. Meanwhile, I started packing. Slowly at first. Just essentials. A few shirts, my shaving kit, the toolbox. I rented a small apartment above a car repair shop across town. It smelled faintly of oil and mildew, but it was mine. The kind of place where no one waited on you to prove your worth. No closed doors with whispered conversations. No curated family portraits where I was always on the edge, one step from being cropped out. Emily didn't call. Not once. She posted something vague on Instagram about learning to grow through pain, which I guess was her way of pretending the whole world hadn't just watched her shatter the man who stood in for the one who abandoned her. A few kids from her class commented with heart emojis and "You're so strong," but the likes were fewer than usual. I didn't feel triumphant. Just numb. Like I'd watched a version of myself die on that stage, and the world was clapping for the ghost. 1 week later, I got a letter. Handwritten. From Diane. It was 3 pages long. She said she never realized how deeply it had all cut me. That she thought I understood the dynamic, whatever that meant. That she didn't think Emily's comment would land that hard. That she didn't speak up because she was frozen, afraid of making a scene. And then, near the end, she wrote, "Maybe I didn't deserve you either." It should have meant something, but it was too late. Apologies are currency that only spins when the moment is still warm. After that, it's just recycled guilt. I didn't write back. I didn't block them, either. Just disconnected. Emotionally. Permanently. There wasn't anything left to fight for. I'd fought for years. With my wallet. My time. My silence. I gave them everything except the right to destroy me, and they almost took that too. But now I had peace. And sometimes peace isn't loud or flashy or triumphant. Sometimes peace is just no longer needing to explain yourself to people who refuse to listen. I never went back for the rest of my things. Left the house with the porch swing I fixed twice, the cabinets I refinished by hand, the garage shelves I built from scrap wood on a long weekend when Diane said she needed more storage. Let them keep all of it. I didn't want souvenirs from a life that no longer belonged to me. That house was a museum now, full of moments that looked happy from the outside but were hollow when you pressed on them. And I was done living in exhibits curated by other people's comfort. The apartment I moved into is small, 2 rooms, no dishwasher, a bathroom fan that whined like a dying bird, but it had a kind of dignity to it. The walls were mine. The silence was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was holding my breath in my own home. I bought a coffee maker that didn't leak. Put my boots by the door and my keys in a bowl I didn't have to share. Every act of independence felt like an unspoken declaration. I exist without you. Some people say the hardest part of walking away is the loneliness. But that's only true if the company you're leaving ever made you feel seen. I wasn't alone now. I was solitary, and those aren't the same. Solitude is quiet and clean and honest. Loneliness is a crowded room where no one looks you in the eye. I'd lived in that room for years. This was better. I started volunteering twice a week at a youth center a few blocks away. Helped kids with homework, fixed the ping pong table, patched up a kid's bike tire. One day, a boy with crooked glasses and a backpack too heavy for his shoulders asked if I was someone's grandpa. I smiled and told him no, but I'd be whatever he needed that afternoon. Tutor, bike repair guy, quiet adult who didn't ask too many questions. He grinned like that was enough. And you know what? It was. Some evenings I'd sit by the window and let the light fade without turning on the lamps. Just watching the day change color, like the sky was rinsing itself of noise. I thought about Emily sometimes, not with anger, just memory. She'd probably gone quiet online after the storm. Maybe started her freshman year with a clean slate. Maybe still explaining herself in dorm common rooms to half-interested listeners who'd seen the clip. I didn't wish her harm. I didn't wish her anything, really. Just hoped that someday, when the noise cleared, she'd look back and realize what it costs to laugh at the hands that held you. Diane never called again. I think she knew. Some betrayals aren't about cheating or lying. They're about looking away at the worst moment, when someone needs you to see them most. Her silence that night, it wasn't just passive. It was permission. It was proof. And no apology, no explanation, no Facebook statement would ever glue that moment back together. A few months after the speech, someone emailed me an article. The video had made it into a national feature. The Prom speech heard round the internet. It dissected my words, talked about fatherhood and blended families, and the quiet heartbreak of being almost enough. They called me the stand-in father. I read it once, then deleted it. I didn't need a legacy. I just needed closure. And I got it. Not in the applause, not in the likes or comments or think pieces, but in the quiet after. In the mornings when I woke up and didn't feel the heaviness in my chest. In the way I could look in the mirror and see a man who didn't abandon himself to keep a seat at someone else's table. I showed up. I gave. I stayed. And when it became clear they would never meet me halfway, I left, not with vengeance, but with truth. That's what freedom looks like. Not some cinematic exit or dramatic showdown. Just a clean cut. A final sentence. A decision to stop bleeding for people who never learned how to bandage a wound. I still keep a photo of Emily from when she was 8, missing teeth, skinned knee, gap-toothed grin, tucked in the back of my wallet. Not because I'm holding on, but because that version of her was real. That version let me braid her hair, let me read bedtime stories, let me believe I was enough. And maybe I was, back then. Maybe we both were. But children grow up. So do the illusions. And when they finally break, all that's left is what you choose to carry. I chose myself. If this story hit you in the heart, take a moment to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Whether you've been the one giving quietly in the background or finally found the strength to walk away, your story matters too. Subscribe for more powerful, real-life narratives, and if this one stayed with you, drop a comment below. Let's talk about what it means to set boundaries and still lead with love. See you soon in the next story.